Okay, let's start our lesson 1. Lesson 1 is about retrieving data using the SQL select statement. Let's define our objectives. Our objectives are the following. List the capabilities of SQL select statements and execute a basic select statement. Lesson agenda. Basic select statement. Using arithmetic expression and null values in the select statement. Using column aliases. The use of concatenation operator, literal character strings, alternative quote operator, and the use of distinct or unique keyword. And finally, using the describe command. Lesson 1.1. Capabilities of SQL select statement. There are 3 capabilities of SQL select statement. First is the projection, second is selection, and third is join. Let's start with projection. Projection. The projection capability of SQL select statement allows you to choose the columns in a table that you want to be returned by a query. You may choose all or just some of the columns of the table. Here is an example. Let's try to use the employees table as our example. If you want to select all the columns of the employees table, you can type this query. And if you want to run this query, you can select it and click this run statement button. So I will click it now, and you will see that this query returned all the columns and all the rows of the employees table. So if you're going to count how many columns are there, so we can count it here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there are 11 columns in the employees table. And for the rows, you can go down and see that the last row is 107. Here it is. That means there are 107 records or rows in the employees table. You may also count the rows in this way. You can right click in any part of that space and click count rows. So you will see there are 107 rows. Another way to see the table structure of the employees table and to see all the columns and all the rows of the employees table is to go to the connection tree menu. So this is your connections tree menu. Under your connections tree menu is your schema connection name, and under your schema you have different objects. In this case, you have tables, views, indexes, packages, etc. We're not going to discuss them right now because what we are concerned about is about SQL select statement. So for now, let's collapse the tables folder. Under the tables folder, you will see all the tables under the schema HR, which are the following: countries, departments, employees, job history, jobs, locations, and regions. So this is where we can see the employees table. If we're going to click this, a window will appear and will show you in the columns tab the exact sequence of the columns, their data types, and also it specifies if the column is nullable or not. If it's not nullable, it means it cannot contain any null value. If it's nullable, it can contain a null value. It will also show you the sequence of the columns and some comments about it. To view the data, you can click the data tab and you will see the 107 records under the employees table. Okay, again, you can also right click here and click count rows. Now let's close this window and go back to our discussion. So what I want you to notice when you run the select asterisk from employees, it shows you all the columns and all the rows in that employees table. It also shows you the columns in the order that it was structured in the table. Meaning, if the first column is employee ID, then in the select asterisk from employees, it will show you that employee underscore ID is the first column, the second column is the first name, the third column is last name, which is exactly the same order that you can see in the table structure. So I just want you to notice that. Now, let's try another projection, but this time we're not going to select all the columns, but we're just going to select some of the columns. In this case, I decided to select employee ID, first name, last name, and hire date. And then of course, we have the from clause. We need to specify that so that the select clause will know where to get the data of those columns, which table will those come from. Okay, so let's select this and click and run the query. So it only shows us the records for employee ID, first name, last name, and hire date. So that is the capability of SQL select statement, which is projection. So again, projection is the capability of the SQL select statement to show us all the columns or specific columns in a table. Next, let's discuss selection. The selection capability of SQL select statement allows you to choose the row or rows in a table that you want to be returned by a query. This is implemented using the where clause and having clause. Okay, this time we are going to select not the columns but the rows of the table. Now to do that, we have to use another clause, which is the where clause and the having clause. But in this example, to make it simple, I'm just going to use the where clause. We're going to discuss the having clause in our later lessons. So again, I would like you to show first all the records and all the columns from the employees table. Okay, now let's do a decision. Let's try to choose specific records from this table. Now let's say I would like to see all the employees in the employees table that has a job ID equals to IT_pro, like these records. That means in my query result, it should not show other job ID other than the IT_pro. Now to do that, I type this query, select asterisk from employees where job ID is equals to IT_pro. Now take note that if you're going to use a criteria that is alphanumeric or a string, it should be enclosed in single quotation. Same thing for dates. If you're going to use a date as your criteria for your where clause, you should put it inside single quotations. But if you're going to use a number column and a number criteria for your where clause, you don't need to put it inside a single quotation. Now let me show you that. So first, let's try to select all the columns from employees table where job ID is equals to IT underscore prog. Let's run. There it is. Okay. It returned all the columns from the employees table, but only those rows that has the job ID equals to IT underscore prog. Now, how about dates? Let's try the date. Let's copy this, Control C, Control V. Now let's change the column. Let's change it to hire underscore date. And let's change the date to 03 January 2006. So I copy that here from this particular employee, Alexander Huno. So I copied his hire date, and I will try to check if the return value would be this employee. Okay, let's run. Oops, sorry. There you go. It's Alexander Huno with the hire date of January 3, 2006. So that's how you use a date criteria. It should be inside a single quotation. Now let's try a number. So let's try to show all the records again. And then let's try to use number as our where clause criteria. Now let's pick a specific column which is a number, in this case salary. Let's change hire date, or I think it's best if we will just copy and paste it and then just change it here. So salary is equals to 24,000. In this case, it should return Stephen King as a result. Let's try. There you go, Stephen King, which has the salary of 24,000. So that is the selection capability of SQL select statement. Now last is the join. The join capability of SQL select statement allows you to bring together data that is stored in two or more tables by creating a link or relationship between them. Now this time, the join capability allows you, using the SQL select statement, to get data from different tables. But in order to do that, you need to find the link between those tables, or if there are no existing link, you should create it. If you read my prerequisite lessons from my website, you already know what I'm talking about. This is about the different entity relationships. Okay, the one-to-many relationship, one-to-one relationship, and the many-to-many relationship. So basically, the link between two or more tables that allows you to perform a join between those tables is called the primary key and the foreign key. Now let me show you what a primary key looks like in a data. First, I will use the departments table as our parent table. Here, the primary key here is the department ID. A primary key is always unique and can never have a null value. That's why here you will see that the department ID doesn't have any duplicate. Now, a foreign key is basically the same primary key but is residing in a different table. That's why it's called foreign, because that column originally doesn't belong to that table. It is foreign to that table. But in order to create the link between the departments table and employees table, it needs to put a department ID in the employees table. So let's try to see if there is a department ID in the employees table. So the department ID is in the last row, or I mean in the last column, which is this one. So that means there is a foreign key, a link between the departments table and the employees table. And that is the department ID in the employees table. And here, this is the difference of a foreign key to a primary key. A foreign key can have duplicate values. Why? Because it means that it has a one-to-many relationship. Meaning, in the departments table, there can only be one department ID because there could only be one defined department. But if you're going to assign employees to that department, it's possible that there could be one or more employees assigned to that department. That's why it's called a one-to-many relationship. So that means Adam and Alana could belong to the same department. So in order to do that, Adam and Alana, which are these two employees, were assigned the ID, department ID 50, which means these employees belong to the same department. So that is how we know what the link is between two tables, and that is what we use in our join statement. Now this is our join statement. So first we need to know what are the columns that we're going to select. So I'm going to select the first name and the last name from the employees table, and I'm going to select the department name under the departments table. If you're going to select first or run this query, select asterisk from departments, you're going to see that the department name is residing in this table. If you're going to run the second query, which is select asterisk from employees, you're going to see that the department name is not in this table. If you try to check it, there is no department name in this table. That means you can only get the department name from the departments table. But what is residing in this table is the department ID, which is the link of the employees table to the departments table. Now we will use that link in our where clause by doing this condition, where department.department underscore ID is equals to employees.department ID. Now it's important that we qualify the columns. What do we mean by we qualify? Since the department ID is existing in both the departments table and the employees table, you need to specify in your where clause which department ID comes from the departments table and which department ID comes from the employees table. If you forgot to put this qualifier, the query will not run properly. The select statement will be confused which column or which table is the column are you getting it from. So it's important that you qualify them. Now, after defining the tables where you're going to get them, and after defining your where clause condition, then specify the columns that you want to select from those table and make sure that you qualify them. In this case, we're selecting the first name and last name from the employees table and the department underscore name from the departments table. From departments and employees, where departments dot department underscore ID is equal to employees dot department underscore ID. We're going to run that, then you will see all the employees and their respective department name. Now let's double check if this is true. Let's try to check Jennifer Wallen. It says here that Jennifer Wallen belongs to department name administration. Is this true? Well, let's check first the name Jennifer Wallen from the employees table. So Jennifer Wallen is here. Jennifer Wallen has an employee ID of 200 and it has a department ID of 10. If you're going to select from the departments table, you will see that department ID 10 is administration. That is why in our join select statement, Jennifer Wallen, which belongs to administration, department name is correct. So those are the three capabilities of the SQL select statement: projection, selection, and join. Now for your optional exercise, please refer to these exercises. First, perform a projection in the departments table by selecting only the department name and location ID. Second, perform a selection in the departments table by selecting the department that is located in Seattle, Washington. You can see the location of the department in the locations table. Third, perform a join between locations table and departments table. Select the department name from the departments table and then select the street address, city, state, province from the locations table. Double check if your query result is correct.